Well, welcome. Thank you for having me. I just wanted to talk to you about a challenge that I was having and an inquiry that I had. So I noticed that and I was teaching 10th and 11th grade, and communicating with students, I had to build that relationship and that connection. However, I was tasked to work with 12th graders this year. This is my first year working with 12th graders. And I've been in the school system for many, many years, but now working with 12th graders, you have a different responsibility. And so what I started to see was a disproportionate amount of my Black and African American students getting D's and F's when compared to other ethnic groups. And that alarmed me. And I was like, well, I'm wondering why there's this issue and problem where these rates are different. And so what I wanted to do for my challenge was to figure out and to make it a goal for me to reduce the amount of D's and F's that my Black and African American students have, as well as increase their A's and B's. And so by doing that, I chose to use one of the practices, learning partnerships. And so with learning partnerships, it states, and this is on page 2, it says each student's, they're to take greater ownership for their learning. And so for me, making sure that they understand that I am the buffer from you in the real world, but you have to take ownership of that to make sure that you have all the tools you need to be successful. The second thing that I wanted to address as well was information processing. And so with information processing, I wanted them to, I wanted to connect to their cultural experiences and identify how and what it is to get them more interested in learning for themselves and being autonomous learners. Because it's one thing, and I know, Drew, you mentioned as well, is sometimes you have to help them start their work. And you're saying, hey, why don't you get your work? Start on this, and what do I do? And as an autonomous learner, you're already on the go. You're taking your stuff like, okay, all you need to do is give me the directions and I can go ahead and make my, finish my work. So in doing that, with our CRT strategy, I wanted to use connect to students' background. I want to build stronger relationships, as well as I want to foster a growth mindset. And so those were the areas that I really wanted to focus on. So in doing that, I thought it's important for me to really understand who my audience is, and this is my students. So before, I had a brick and mortar mindset where I taught everybody the same way, and you either got the information or you didn't. And where I had to grow in my mindset, not just with my students, but with everybody in my community there at the school, was to identify ways that I could help connect to them to make them stronger in understanding what they're learning. I have a difficult task of trying to teach students how to not only be doctors, but other medical professionals. And so I had to figure out a way to mesh together these hard terms and ideologies with something that they can relate to. And as I began to talk to them and understand them, the community they were in, I began to use examples of things that they were experiencing. Now, and I don't mean like cultural, I mean age range. I'm a lot older, so I had to really listen to what songs they listen to, or what TV shows they watch, or what do they like to do through the day when they're not in school. And so by doing that and tapping into the younger culture, I was able to connect. I noticed you mentioned that you have family members that you can kind of talk to and connect with them. For me, I don't have that age range to connect with, so I just had to kind of dive in and get to know a lot of the stuff that was going on. And I think over time, I was able to make some good connections. So I wanted to talk about the data that I had. And so if we go back to this page, I started off by helping support them. So I made this protocol, it's a DNF protocol. And so what I did was, if they did not pass a class, or if they did not pass a lesson, I would go back and I would make a contract with them for them to redo their work. So giving them more chances to show their mastery of that skill, I found was important. And I think before, me just shutting them off by saying, hey, you either get it right the first time or else, was not really looking at them mastering the skill. It was just seeing, can they get the information, and regurgitate it once I tell them to do so. So those things were the little things that I used with this CRT to make those growth mindset changes. And so I created that DNF protocol in order to help them to look at assignments that they didn't pass, and then we made a contract. And so once we had that contract, once they finished them and I went back through and they got that, it changed their grade because they were able to master the skill, which was more important than them doing the assignment, was mastering the skill. The other thing I did was I did it's a student empathy interview. And so with the student empathy interview, I really got a chance to sit down, kind of like you were mentioning, Jason, was to sit down with them and find out what do they like to do, what makes you happy, what excites you. And so by kind of grasping what makes them want to work with each other, to work in cohorts and groups, what gets you excited, it helped me understand them better as a person. Lastly, we looked at data over the course of that time. With me doing the DNF protocol as well as the empathy interview, I noticed within 3 weeks there was a significant change in grades that my students were getting. And it went from, I had my black and brown students, I had almost 60% of them were getting a majority D's and F's. And my other students were getting, it was only 21% that were getting D's and F's. And I didn't understand why. But as I entered those protocols, now it's only 11% of my black students that are getting D's and F's on their grades. And part of it was allowing them to continue to do the work until they mastered the skill. But it also decreased in my other group as well, which was 6%. My projection now is I'm hoping by the end of this year, I can reduce them down to only 5% of my students all getting D's and F's. And so I think that's a significant change in doing so.